Hey and welcome, Hammy here, and today the question is spider tank or no spider tank? As the Overwatch community has gone into overdrive speculating about Efi Oladele's blog, people are getting really keen on the idea of a spider tank or mech being the next hero, Efi being evil and all sorts of things. In this video I'll explain three things: what the speculations surrounding the idea of a spider tank is, where the origins of this Anchora spider tank rumour have come from, so you know the sources people are citing for and against this mech. Then I'll try to separate what we know as fact from what is speculation at this point. After that, you can decide what you like most as theories or not. Okay, let's get to it. Right, to make up your own mind as to how likely the rumour of a spider mech or tank hero are, and whether it's anything to do with Efi in the blog we've seen yesterday, you need to understand and interpret a 4chan post that people are citing from a few months back. Calling themselves Blizzy Leaks on 4chan, this post was made in early January, and in it the leaker mentions a few different things, including the fact that the next hero won't be Doomfist but will be a female omnic quadruped called Anchora, or codenamed Anchora. To evaluate how true or not this leak may be, we need to analyse all the points of it, and I'll quickly run through the non-spider tanks points first, as those are the points people are using to try and verify how true or not this leak might be. It mentions three things mainly. Firstly, some things around Lunar New Year, skins to celebrate the year of the rooster, and a K-Pow for May as a specific named example. Secondly, it cites that a May origin story is coming up next, with some details as to what it thinks the plot might be, but the leak does not specify whether it's an animated short, comic or otherwise. Thirdly, and most key for this specific rumour, the supposed leak says that Doomfist is not the next hero, but it's a female omnic quadruped, codenamed Anchora potentially. It then gives some reasons supporting why that might be, including the fact that Overwatch needs another tank roster, a sort of pitting tank like Reinhardt, and the tank would be from Numbani with a West African accent. Okay, time to break these down, and then we'll get on to the Anchora bit afterwards. Firstly, this post was made on Monday the 9th of January 2017. Let's have a look at the Lunar New Year bit first. This post was made after Blizzard hinted a new May Legendary would come early in 2017, so we already knew that a May Legendary would be coming. Blizzard had also said before this post was made that neither Valentine's nor Easter would be getting events in Overwatch. Now, the only other major holiday that Blizzard celebrates in their games, Heroes of the Storm for example, and WoW, is Lunar New Year. It makes sense with Blizzard's Chinese market. People had actually speculated about Lunar New Year being a holiday in December and November of 2016 too, so before this post was actually made on 4chan. May getting a skin in a year of the Rooster Chinese New Year event is not the hardest guess, or not the hardest speculation. Sure, it's an informed one from stuff that was mentioned before, but it's not a huge leap. Remember of course that New Year's voice lines had also been in the Overwatch client since the middle of 2016 as well. People had speculated about this months before too. Also, on one specific detail, the May K-Pow thing, May didn't get a K-Pow, Symmetra did in the end as a skin. So that's just a small fact check there. Now, what people haven't been quoting when they've been looking at this 4chan post is that later in the comment thread on the same poster made some more predictions, and they actually got two things kind of wrong. I pulled out the comments here. In the comment thread, they said expect to see skins for the usual suspects: Hanzo, Genji, and maybe Tracer. So Tracer is a fair guess. Again, she always gets stuff, but Hanzo and Genji didn't actually get skins, and indeed other people commented on this supposed speculation in the comments, saying why do Hanzo and Genji get skins for a Chinese or Lunar New Year? Do notice here, to be fair, unbalanced on the other side, that the commenter does mention, oh, the obvious ones like Sun Wukong Winston. Now, ever since Eco Point Antarctica was released in the Christmas event, and even before then, with May's voice line saying that Winston looks just like Sun Wukong, a Sun Wukong Winston skin was speculated months before even Chinese or Lunar New Year was mentioned. So, although you could say that that's true from this person's comment, it's not, again, the biggest speculation leak. The second point that this 4chan leak was also wrong on is that they said in a separate post on this thread there'd be no major event, it would just be skins. Well, we actually got Capture the Flag and all the trappings of a usual event. So again, I think that if this person was leaking real, then they would have known that it was a major event perhaps, rather than just skins coming out. I don't know, but again, there's a contradiction there that people haven't been mentioning. It's worth noting also the lore context at which this post was made. By this point, we had pretty much all of the same May lore and otherwise, apart from today's interview and Winston's journey to the West little scroll, which didn't have much in the way of lore. It was more a representation of a story that Dr. Harold Winston was telling to Winston. BlizzCon had had Sombra's origin story, and other things, of course, we know recently have hinted towards Numbani, so people have been tying all of these together. Doomfist hype, well, that's been going for quite some time since Terry Crews' Doomfist's ties to Numbani are known, making the prediction in this post that the leaker supposedly says that the hero wasn't Doomfist would certainly make it more credible if it turned out not to be Doomfist, for example. So that's an interesting one. Kind of true, well, yes, if we put Jeff's comment alongside it when he said that the next hero is not who we think it is, and this Efi link seems to be pointing to that too. So we'll chalk up a tentative tick next to that for the leaker. Also, at the point that this post was made, we didn't yet have the Numbani data mines showing the payload's broken glass model. Now, it's worth knowing that in-game changes, as I mentioned in my Doomfist video on this very subject, have been either used for foreshadowing for animated shorts or events that will happen, as I said before, like Winston's broken glass in Recall and Watchpoint Gibraltar, the arrows in the ground in Hanamura in Dragons. However, they can also be used as part of the animated short process, or as part of an ARG in Sombra's case with the Sombra protocol screens in Derived. Okay, let's have a quick look at this animated short or origin story piece that the supposed leaker tries to mention. Here's some reasons why people might think that it's true. Well, we have had EcoPoint Antarctica recently, and May doesn't have loads of lore. She's one of the few heroes who doesn't have anything specific aside from the odd mention in a comic, like in Reflections, and her little teaser blog before her release that was May's adventure. EcoPoint Antarctica in many ways was actually telling May's backstory in terms of what happened to her in the Antarctic. The leak actually uses some of these facts in the telling of the story that it says is going to be May's origin story. So here are the reasons against why I think that a May short or an additional bit of May lore right now is perhaps unlikely. Michael Chu on Twitter mentioned that the news article about Efi was in the present day. May waking up would have possibly happened before Recall, if you look at the timelines on May's bio and depending on everything else that's happened. And additionally, we didn't actually see May's face as being recalled in the current short. Maybe that's because Recall only recalled combat operatives rather than people who were more scientists, for example. Every single blog that we've had on the Play Overwatch website so far, like Efi's, the Sombra blogs during the ARG and similar, they all feel very present day. I feel that blogs, personally, are little vehicles used to move the story forward or nudge it forwards to make the timeline always seem current, as it were, to give us a feel that time is passing between any big drops like heroes, like animated shorts and similar. May's dire need of lore is not as dire actually as some other heroes. Other heroes have had no lore at all, and by that I mean nothing substantial, no comic, no short, no blog. Here are some: Diva, Lucio, Mercy and Zenyatta. They've had little mentions in comics, little nods. Diva had a little bit of a backstory as to her being the StarCraft champion before she was released, but they've had nothing of substance individually focusing on their story outside of their hero bio. Now, May has had EcoPoint Antarctica. I feel that having the level devoted to you and your backstory with all of the Easter eggs inside it is pretty substantial. As I mentioned in my EcoPoint Antarctica map lore analysis, you can pretty much tell the story of what happened to May, or so we can guess, from looking around the level. So if May has been given some details already through EcoPoint Antarctica in-game storytelling, if Blizzard made a short with the details that this leak gave, and I've given them here, then it feels like doubling down on a story we actually already know. So could May do with story? Yes. Will it be the specific story that this leaker purports is actually going to be coming up as an origin story? Would May have an animated short? Right now, I think, given the other heroes that need more lore, it's kind of unlikely. And don't forget, of course, any new hero needs corresponding lore and development time and animated short production time, origin trailer production time, all that kind of thing as well. So this doesn't feel hugely credible to me, but I guess we just have to wait and see. So, in summary, I think we need to be careful at believing this 4chan leak too much and making it too much of a basis for any speculation on Efi, a spider tank hero or otherwise. Of the things that this leak said, let's say 2 out of 4 of them are kind of true, but also both were either pretty easy to predict or reasonable guesswork or speculation based off existing information. There are plenty of bits, to be fair, of spider tank or mech art and a few interesting references in the game and assets right now that are being snowballed on. And hey, it's all speculation at this point. I love the spider tank idea, and don't get me wrong, I just think people are getting a little hyped off facts that perhaps aren't facts. So now we've analysed the pros and cons for the truth of this 4chan leak, let's now review the Anchora mech part of it with that in mind, and the evidence or data people are speculating on. Here are some potential backing reasons that people are using why it's believable, or why people want to believe, X-Files style. The Sombra protocol web has been out since Sombra's announced in November of last year, and it did have hints towards Numbani in it at that time. As mentioned earlier, we've had other links to Numbani, like the payload model recently. We already know that Numbani is a city with omnic and human coexistence. We've had Efi's blog pointing to Numbani and her as being a Numbani citizen, and similar. When you put all of these together, there was also a spider tank-like schematic on the Sombra conspiracy web, one that was connected to Numbani, and also a mysterious omnic, we presume, that was seen handing an orb of glowing energy or otherwise to Katya Volskaya. Actually, the very image that Sombra tried to bribe or blackmail Volskaya off in the events of the short infiltration. So, Sombra's conspiracy web, a spider tank mech, a link to Numbani. People are taking all of these, wrapping them up with this 4chan leak, and saying that Efi is perhaps creating this spider tank mech. In the ongoing snowball, people are also looking, as always, as I have done in the past as well, to old concept art, some from the original Overwatch animated announced cinematic, and some from the walls that people took in photos recently at Blizzard's headquarters. Now, there are different depictions of both a spider-like mech or spider-like mechs as shown here. It's worth emphasising though, this is old concept art, and we have seen these mechs, some of them anyway, elsewhere since, which I'll explain in the against section. Outside of the spider bit, a tank hero is actually pretty likely for a couple of reasons, and people are using this as additional support for the spider element of this. Blizzard have stated in interviews that they wanted to make new tanks even late last year in press interviews. There have also been no tanks since launch. We've also had an offensive hero in Sombra, we've had a support hero in Ana, there are lots of DPS heroes right now as well, as we've said, and the defense category is pretty chunky, so tank or defense would kind of make sense. Just because a tank hero could be on the way, it doesn't mean that it has to be a spider mech or tank, and it doesn't mean it has to be Efi's. So here's some reasons why maybe we should just cool the hype a little bit. Spider tanks are omnics or mech designs, and they've existed in the Overwatch universe for at least 30 years, as far as we know. Why do we know this? Well, they were used in the first Omnic Crisis. We've seen that in the intro cinematic for Overwatch. We've seen them in the last Bastion, as being one of the units of the ground forces in the Battle of Eichenwald sequence. They litter the ground in the Eichenwald level. There are both small versions and huge walking versions that we can see in the background of the level if you look out over the side of the map. And they are also currently being used, by the looks of things, in the second Omnic Crisis in Russia, if Winston's Are You With Us cinematic trailer is to be believed. Now, looking back to the old Overwatch concept art, this spider looks pretty familiar to the one that was in the BlizzCon 2014 Overwatch Origins panel, the one that's on the walls at Blizzard HQ, and other different things as well that we've seen since. I'd say we can't really cite these images as canon. They were early concepts, and as we know, things have moved on a lot from the finished image in the original cinematic trailer. Take this image that a lot of people cite, and I myself have cited it too. Lucio is in this picture. He has never been anything to do with Overwatch as an organisation or a member of the organisation in the lore story now, as we know, but in the original cinematic trailer, this was just presented as Overwatch. So there are a few little inconsistencies there. Now, Efi, while a genius in robotics and artificial intelligence, she didn't actually invent the spider tank. These have already existed in universe. Going back to the Sombra protocol image that some news outlets have taken and other people have taken as evidence for Efi's perhaps being linked to Numbani and this spider tank, I'd say that this image looks more like the pre-existing mech design that we've seen elsewhere, that we've seen as a part of the Omnic Crises. If we go back to the Overwatch cinematic teaser trailer, again we've seen Genji sitting on a spider type mech that I think personally looks pretty like the design that we see in the Sombra origin image. So we need to be really careful with tying the Sombra origin spider mech to Efi just because of Numbani. Finally, if you think about it in a logical sense, the blog says that she has a big upcoming secret project. If this is current in the timeline, as Michael Chu has said, then it's probably reasonable to assume that her big secret project is probably not just a recreation of an old project. Who knows? Now, Overwatch timelining can be a dangerous thing, but depending on how you read the timeline, there's probably a bit of a timeline issue here too. The Sombra protocol image was actually released last November, and if Efi's blog is in the current day, then she only received her grant last month. Image of the spider tank on Sombra's conspiracy image existed, like spider tanks, for the last 30 years, before Efi thought of her project perhaps, but who knows. Finally, just to quickly box something else off, people have been trying to say that Efi is evil or bad. She's an 11-year-old girl and she's written really innocently in the blog. So I can see her tech going wrong. AI has, of course, as we know, had big problems before in the Overwatch universe, but I can't see her being inherently evil or chaotic at this point. There is a bit of an odd theory of her being captured or forced to build something for Talon or similar. That's a little bit grimdark for even the darker parts right now of the Overwatch universe and story, to be honest. Remember, Efi is 11 years old. Overwatch is a T for teen or PEGI 13 rated game here in the UK. You cannot put kids in harm's way directly and expect that rating to stand. So this will limit what Efi's involvement in both peril and combat will be, and also the story in some ways most probably. So do bear that in mind with any theories you make or read. So Efi is a drone and robotics inventor for sure, she has artificial intelligence skills absolutely, and she's clearly a prodigy. She may well have invented something that could be the next hero, or she could control as part of the next hero. I love speculating, as you'll know if you watch this channel regularly, and I love spider tanks. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here, and I don't want to be Buzz Killington for you Family Guy fans. However, I just feel that a lot of people are making a huge jump based off this 4chan post that we've shown could be flawed in several ways. So it is of course all down to interpretation. Just be careful of people citing this 4chan post as fact. It is not at the moment. If a May animated short or comic releases, or if a spider tank releases, I am happy to be proven wrong. I love spider tanks and I'd love some May lore. Okay, so hopefully that's some myths busted, or at least the situation clarified. Maybe it's even just stoked your spider mech or tank hype even further, and if so, fair play to you. Do you think the above evidence I've gone through is credible support for a spider mech or tank being actually anything to do with Efi at all, or do you reckon that maybe the hype thrusters are burning hard? I'd love to know your thoughts, so do let me know in the comments. Cheers for tuning in to this Overwatch lore, theory and speculation analysis video. I'm really excited to see what the lead up to this next hero is going to lead us to. Throw a like in the comments if you enjoyed this, do let me know your thoughts with a comment as well as to whether you think this is crazy or maybe has something to it as well. And throw a subscribe if you like more of this kind of content. If you like Overwatch lore or you like this kind of thing, do check out the videos in the playlist below on the rest of my channel. I cover Overwatch hero, world lore, animated short and comic analysis, and anything to do with Overwatch lore, story, origins, speculation, and more. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammy. Take it easy.